All right, and welcome back to another episode of the First Team Fantasy Podcast. Today we have the Thursday night preview for you guys, as well as our starts and sits for the week. Going to be a pretty quick episode, so let's get right on into it. The Tennessee offense is averaging 18.9 points per game, 180 pass yards per game, and 115.9 rush yards per game, while the Steelers' defense is giving up 21 points per game, 254.4 passing yards per game, and 137 rushing yards per game.
Yeah.
Last game for the Titans, we saw Derrick Henry rush the ball 22 times for over 100 yards. I think we will see a similar workload and similar production this week. They were able to run the ball successfully, which opened up the pass game as well. Will Levis was clearly a lot more able to perform in that offense than Ryan Tannehill was and Malik Willis. Therefore, I think that gives the Tennessee pass catchers a much better option, and it gives them a bit of a boost. One thing that is kind of worrisome, well, more than kind of, given that it's Wednesday, and DeAndre Hopkins did not practice today. He is officially listed as questionable for tomorrow. That is a very big deal. If he were not to play, the two receivers would be Treylon Burks and Nick Westbrook. Westbrook would probably be the guy getting more targets, I'm assuming, because that's just what, I mean, Treylon Burks didn't even get a target last week. But all in all, I think D-Hop will play. It's a very important game for the Titans. They are fighting for a spot to try to get back in the wild card or even, fight to win that division. So I would think he will be playing, but given the DNP tag today and the game is tomorrow, something that has to be heavily monitored. You know what you're going to get out of Derrick Henry. You're obviously starting him.
Yeah.
Tyjae Spears, if you're in a bit of a bind, is an interesting option. I mean, he's shown that in the limited work he gets, he's able to get some production out of it. He, gets around 6-7 fantasy points every week. And if you are in desperate need of a running back and you just need a guy to throw out there that's not going to get you burned, someone like him, like Justice Hill, he's around that caliber, like AJ Dillon, someone who's not going to zero you, but they're probably not going to put up anything crazy. Yeah, and then, I'm not really starting Chigakonkwo.
No.
If D-Hop doesn't go, I would, if you have DeAndre Hopkins and you don't have, you were relying on him this week due to all the buys and whatnot, I might consider picking up Nick Westbrook and maybe Treylon Burks and trying to throw one of them in. But hopefully you do have better options because we just haven't really seen. Akina Westbrook's had a couple good games. We haven't seen a single thing out of Treylon Burks this year. So it's not really direction I would prefer to look. And yeah, if you have a Nick Folk, fire him up.
Yeah.
The only week that he didn't kick multiple field goals was last week because they finally figured out how to score touchdowns. Do I see that same efficiency from the offense this week recurring? No, I do not. I mean, they'll probably get in the end zone, they'll score, but they're not going to score 4 touchdowns this week. I say they're not going to. I don't believe they're going to score 4 touchdowns this week. So, I mean, Nick Folk is a great option. I'd like to say the Tennessee defense isn't the worst option in this one. Kenny Pickett is banged up yet again. It's surprising that he's playing, given that it's a short week. So, I mean, Tennessee's pass defense or pass rush has been good. Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry. So, I mean, it's a decent option. Then, yeah, that's about it for the Titans.
Yeah, just only thing to add is if D-Hop does miss, Nick Westbrook is solid. Treylon Burks is super unproven. I almost see more passes going to Derrick Henry and Tyjae Spears. I like Tyjae Spears more if D-Hop does not go.
Yeah, I can agree with that. The only reason I say Akina Westbrook and because the Steelers, like I said, are giving up 254 passing yards per game. So it's and they didn't acquire anybody in the trade deadline. They didn't get anybody. So it's still like a wet paper towel in that secondary besides Joey Porter Jr., who gets interceptions sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good. But, I mean, Patrick Peterson, he's not covering anything. But, yeah, no, that's all I have for Tennessee. So, go
Yeah,
ahead
and then
take it away with,
Pittsburgh side of the ball, you kind of touched on it. Kenny Pickett, obviously we're not starting Kenny Pickett, but will Kenny Pickett be 100%? Probably not. And, he's gotten the ball efficiently to George Pickens and Diontae. And, we saw a bit of Trubisky have some success getting it to Diontae and not George Pickens unless it's a touchdown. But, yeah, in this matchup, I feel like you have to fire up Diontae, obviously. I like firing up George Pickens. The running backs, what's crazy is we're seeing Najee get more catches out the backfield. Like, he's only seen 3 targets the very first week, and then he had not all the way until these past 2 weeks. And then we're seeing him get 3-4 catches a game. Jaylen Warren's still getting his 3-4 catches a game. We're seeing Najee get a lot more carries than Jaylen Warren. That difference is kind of growing a bit. But
I guess something to note also is those past 2 weeks are the 2 weeks out of their bye.
Mm-hmm.
They probably looked at it and figured we should probably be doing what we did this guy's rookie year that made him really successful.
Yeah.
And throw him the ball just a little bit. I don't know why it took 6 weeks to figure out, but I guess they finally did.
Yeah, I mean, when you're not throwing Najee the ball, defenses are sitting and just knowing he's either pass blocking or he's running. I mean, he just wasn't a receiving threat. But it's a tough matchup. I think, depending on buys, how you're looking and everything, by no means do I like the Najee start, but I understand it if you have to make it. I don't think, if he's catching 3-4 passes out the backfield, he's not going to completely burn you. He can get you at least, 8 to 10. Same with Jaylen Warren. He's right in that 7 to 10. His worst week on the season, 6.8. Speaking about Jaylen Warren, it's just tough because it's Thursday, and if you start Najee or Jaylen Warren and they get you 8, it just sets your week up not the greatest position. But again, with all the buys, I don't hate the Najee start especially. But it might just be something you have to do. Connor Hayward is no.
I mean, you can't be that desperate for a tight end.
Yeah, and
I mean, maybe, but
an interesting one is okay. In this hypothetical, say D-Hop doesn't go. How do you, even if he does, how do you feel about Pittsburgh defense because of their ability for turnovers?
Well, I'm starting Pittsburgh's defense regardless.
Yeah.
This is Mike Tom. You can say what you want about how Will Levis performed in game 1. This kid's going into Pittsburgh. I hate the Steelers, but I got to respect Mike Tomlin.
Mm-hmm.
And a kid going in for his second start against the Pittsburgh Steelers, their defense on paper has been bad, but their defense has also been what has won them games. Their pass rush, you could look at their fantasy defense hasn't been bad because they get sacks, they get turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do. That's the name of their game. And for a second start going into Pittsburgh, I love firing up Pittsburgh's defense. You very well, they could end up giving up a few touchdowns, but I think they'll make up for it in sacks and turnovers.
Do you know what that was?
I'd prefer you never do that again. So
the terrible towels will be flapping in Pittsburgh. But that's all I had.
I mean, for the sake of my defense this week, I hope so. But and with that, we are going to take I guess you could start Chris Boswell too, because the Steelers usually don't like to score touchdowns.
Yeah. Chris Boswell's solid.
Not horrible, but
yeah.
And then we'll take it right into our starts and sits of the week. I'd say honestly, for the sits this week, it's not just in a vacuum. You can't just take it at face value because depending on the way your team is made up, you might not be able to sit one of these guys.
Yeah.
Like we said, there's 4 teams on bye this week, and those 4 teams happen to have some pretty relevant fantasy players.
Mm-hmm.
So to start it off with my sit for the quarterback position, I have CJ Stroud versus Tampa Bay. he's a guy that I'm hoping for better days from, but this isn't a week that I'm projecting the better day to come. He has been under 20 he's been at about 15 and below fantasy points in his last 3 outings, which it's just like I said, this isn't I don't think Tampa Bay defense is the get right game. The Tampa Bay defense has been what's keeping them in games. So I think it's going to be a tough week for Stroud, given what we saw last week against the Panthers. It's not like you're rolling over into an easier opponent by any means. And my start of the week, once again, and I'm going to keep preaching it until he burns me, Dak Prescott against the Philadelphia Eagles. We've seen Sam Howell have 2 huge days against the Eagles, and Dak arguably has a better squad around him. And Dak's been lighting it up. I think that, every time we see these 2 teams go at it, it's fireworks. I think we're due for another game like that. I think Dak very well could have a 25, 30-point week be a top 5-3. He could end up quarterback 1 this week. He very well could. The Eagles defense hasn't been stopping too much, and the Cowboys offense is hitting a groove. You want to give us your quarterbacks?
Yeah, and I always swing big on these, and again, like Schiff mentioned, this is a very strong bye week, so these are guys, especially on my list, I feel like you're probably going to have to start either way, but they're just matchups I don't like personally. My sit of the week is going to be Tua. He, through 8 weeks, he has 4 weeks where 1, he's QB2, QB3, QB8, but he also has 4 weeks outside of the QB10. So he's had 4 weeks where if you're playing a 10-man, he was not one of the top 10 quarterbacks. And they're traveling to Kansas City against a Chiefs team who just put up an embarrassing performance against the Broncos.
They're not going to Kansas City.
Oh, they're going to Germany. They're going to Germany. That's a misspeak on mine. And that's a big part of it also is, they're traveling.
But then that could swing either way.
Yeah, that can swing either way, but one thing we've seen in these international games is a bit of jet lag from offenses. We haven't seen like some crazy high-powered games. It's just one of those where Tua, I don't know, I just don't see the Chiefs being embarrassed again 2 weeks in a row. Andy Reid, again, Tyreek Hill, redemption game against the Chiefs. He wanted the Chiefs to pay him. Apparently, they weren't crazy far off. I'm pretty sure we saw the guarantee. The Chiefs were at like 70. Dolphins gave them like 80, 81. It's just a hit or miss game. I don't know. I just don't think Tua's going to have a solid week. But again, he's one of those quarterbacks where he's proven he can either go 28 or he can have a week where he plays like the Eagles or something and give you 13. So it's just, we'll have to wait and see. A much easier decision, I would say, for a start is Derek Carr against the Bears. Justin Fields did not practice to start the week. We'll see if he's ready for this game. If he is not, it's going to be Tyson Pageant again. The Bears are horrendous on defense. In the Saints, at least Derek Carr, he's kind of catching stride a little bit. Back to back to back, 3 in a row, 300-yard plus games. We see him connecting with Rashid Shaheed deep. Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, Taysom Hill is everywhere on the field. It's just a super favorable matchup. And where if your quarterback's on bye and you're looking at the waiver wire, Derek Carr's probably there, and he's a very safe start.
I know you didn't, but there's a lot of Raider fans that wrote him off that are wishing that his jersey colors were gold or were silver and black right now instead of gold and black.
That's way too soon. I'm one of those. I didn't want to let go of Derek Carr.
No, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of Raider fans that wrote him off. That
are now wishing
he was gone. That are wishing that his jersey colors were still silver and black and not gold and black.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit.
Absolutely should still be a Raider. 100%.
Yeah, it. Never once did I think he was an upgrade, or did I think Jimmy G was an upgrade over him?
No.
Never once. And it is amazing that people did, but
here we are with Aiden O'Connell starting.
We are.
And it's the right choice.
It is the right choice.
Yeah.
You're not going to throw out Hoyer. That's clear. And we are sidetracking yet again.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to take it into our running backs with my sit of the week being James Cook. He's playing the Bengals this week. And it's not so much the ability of James Cook as the reason why I'm putting him as a sit. It is like we talk about every week, just their unwillingness to put him in at the goal line.
Yeah.
And they insist on handing the ball to Latavius Murray. And they just picked up Leonard Fournette. While I'm not saying, oh, that's going to be some knock to James Cook, it's something that
It muddles it.
On it, just knowing the way that the Bills do things, it very well could.
Yeah.
Because they were using Damian Harris quite a bit. They seemed to prefer using 3 running backs. So it does concern me. And just until...
And the Bengals are hot right now, too. Their defense is playing.
And that's what I mean. It's like it could get to the point where they're not even in a position where they could run the ball.
Yeah.
The Bills' defense hasn't been spectacular. They could get down a couple scores quick, and I mean, the run game just...
Yeah.
While he might have some involvement in the pass game, we've seen that does not tend to be what the Bills rely on at all. It's going to be a whole lot of Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, and Dalton Kincaid. Oh, and apparently Khalil Shakir. Yeah, so that's my sit of the week. Like we've talked about, if you're in a position where if you have like McCaffrey, Montgomery, some of these guys with about Javonte Williams, you are not in a position where you can sit James Cook, then that's it. You're not picking up Amari DiMercato and starting him over James Cook. You're starting James Cook, but it's like, just know that it could very well be another sub 10-point week.
Yeah.
And for my starts, I have just the Browns running backs. And by that, I mean Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford.
Yeah.
If you have either one of those, I think either one is a good start. We saw in this past week, Gus Edwards went berserk against the Arizona Cardinals, while Justice Hill still finished with a 9.5 point fantasy week. That sounded crazy. But what I'm saying is 2 running backs are basically able to, one had an extremely explosive week, and the other was able to not
serviceable.
Lose you a week.
Yeah.
And there's not so much separation when it comes to the carries in the Browns' backfield. I think both of them are going to get a decent amount of work against a very bad run defense. I still don't know for sure which quarterback's going to be playing for the Browns. And if it is Deshaun Watson, I think they're going to be running the ball a lot. If it's PJ Walker, I think they're going to be running the ball a lot. And I could say the same thing again for DTR.
Yeah.
They're going to be running the ball a lot. So if you have Kareem or Jerome Ford, I think either one of them should get it done this week. Definitely watching Jerome Ford's health, but given the fact that he played in this last game, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah.
So, that will be it for my running backs.
Well, let me just add another big name to my sit of the week, and I've been consistent with when a running back plays the Eagles, I sit them. Yeah. And Tony Pollard's going to Philadelphia to play them. Last season, he was averaging 5.2 yards a carry. He's down to 3.9 yards a carry. He's been very inefficient on the ground. And when I look, his stats have almost gone down every week except for when he played the Chargers week 6. He went 22, 19, 15, 9, 8. He had the 17 against the Chargers and then 6.5 against the Rams. It just has not looked good. His first 3 weeks, he ran at 14, 25, and 23. Last week, he ran at 12. He ran it 15 times against the Chargers for 30 yards. And he ran it 8 times against the Niners for 29. Something that saved him is he is getting solid targets out of the backfield. This past week, he only got 1 target for 2 yards. I mean, he finished 6.5 fantasy points against the Rams. They're playing the Eagles. It is very tough to run the ball against the Eagles. I think the Cowboys are going to have to pass. Obviously, you're going to have to start him and pray that he does get 4 or 5 catches out the backfield, and that can save his fantasy day, because on the ground, I just do not see him getting it done.
He won't get it done.
No, he will not. And to flip it, someone that I absolutely think is going to have a monster week is Josh Jacobs against the Giants. The 1 week Aiden O'Connell started, do you know how many targets Josh Jacobs saw out the backfield?
8?
11.
Wow.
He caught 8 of them for 81 yards.
Caught 8.
Yeah, caught 8 for 81 yards. It was his best week of the season. I mean,
who are they playing?
The Giants at home.
Who? No. I'm sorry. Who were they playing that week?
The Chargers. The Chargers.
That may or may not have to do with the fact that Khalil Mack got 6 sacks in that game.
Yeah. But
so,
I know.
I was like,
they had to get it out quick. But I mean, the Raiders O-line isn't that great, yes, and Aiden O'Connell has shown. We just watched Jimmy G get just obliterated by the Lions.
Like, there's just a side note that we need to like.
Yeah, no, 100%. Sure. But
I agree with you 100%. Like,
it's a favorable matchup, and Josh Jacobs does get a crazy amount of work on the ground. He does show, obviously gets the goal line carries. He can get in the end zone this game. He's going to get targets out the backfield. And just to make it even spicier, the Raiders' interim coach, Antonio Pierce, Giants royalty. I mean, he's going to want the win against his old team. You don't got nothing for that one? Nothing for the Antonio Pierce Giants rivalry? Whatever, dude. I thought it was a good one. It is what it is. Go to the receivers. What?
All right.
What? You think? All right, never. Just go to the receivers. Go to the receivers. Whatever.
I'm not gonna lie. The only reason it didn't hit is because you were lagging out when you were saying it. So I was kind of waiting.
Oh, okay.
And it happened while you were lagging, so it wasn't your fault. It was my internet's. Anyways, moving on to the receivers. My sit of the week is DJ Moore. While yes, we've talked about. We're limited on guys this week. It's looking at this Bears offense with Tyson Bagent as quarterback. It's really rough, and they're going up against a nasty defense this week. I mean, The Saints have been good.
Yeah.
The Saints pass rush hasn't been good for years. The Saints DBs are good. Marshawn Lattimore is going to be on DJ Moore. Mm-hmm. And we just saw the Chargers, worst pass defense in the league, hold DJ Moore to 5 catches for 55 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst pass defense in the league. To think that DJ Moore will have a better week this week is not something that I am counting on.
Mm-hmm.
So just given that, and I mean, every matchup's different, so you can't just take one matchup and apply it to the next one. But even given that, I don't think he has a better week than he did against a much worse pass defense. They had to throw the ball and were just clearly unable to get it done against the Chargers. Like I said, the Saints are much better. They're gonna have Lattimore on him. It's not gonna be pretty. No. I don't see him eclipsing 10 points this week. And if he does, that's just purely based off of how good of a receiver DJ Moore is.
Yeah.
And that can't be taken away from him, but the matchup can be, you can note that and be wary of it, and I don't like it at all. So,
especially if it's Bagent, even if it's Fields, throwing finger. It's tough.
And it's not. I don't think he's going to be playing, so...
Yeah, it'll probably be Bagent, which is... That's it.
He threw one of the worst... No. Yeah. Maybe. It was bad. But my start of the week for the wide receiver position is going to be Jakobi Meyers. After his awful performance in the last game, it might be a bit confusing, but... We know him and Aiden O'Connell, despite the limited playing time they've had together, have had a good connection. How many touchdown passes has Aiden O'Connell thrown to Jakobi Meyers?
Well, I think one. No, maybe two. Maybe two.
Uh-uh.
Maybe two.
He caught one in the Chargers game, didn't he?
Yeah. No.
And-
No. Jakobi Meyers' second worst game of the season was against the Chargers. 2 catches,
Oh,
33
really?
yards, 4 targets.
Oh. But at the end of the Bears game, we did see him throw a touchdown
Yeah.
to Jakobi Meyers. And by all means, yes, that was a bad game against the Chargers. But like I said before, that was also a game where Khalil Mack himself got 6 sacks.
He
So
lived in the backfield.
expecting anybody to have any kind of a productive day, really, aside from Josh. But that's what I mean.
That's why
It's
Josh got the volume. Yeah.
that's what's important about like knowing what happened in the game. Because if you just look at it like that and you don't know that the Chargers D line was absolutely just wrecking that game, you're not gonna understand why that happened. But and given the whole week with the new coaching, the whole week with O'Connell getting the starting reps, I think the timing will be good. I think everybody, they already have a game under the belt playing with each other. I think it'll be fine. I think Jakobi is a very important part of this offense. He's showed that. And I think obviously, if I could, I'd put Diontae, but who the hell isn't starting Diontae Adams?
Yeah.
Especially when Jimmy G isn't playing quarterback. Because good Lord. I mean, we already talked about that, so we won't get back into it. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Jakobi Meyers, honestly, I think he has a 15+ point week.
I get behind that. I could get behind that for sure. Someone who I do not think will have a 15-point week. He's been on this list before. I was right about him when he was on the list. We'll see if I'm right this time. Is going to be Devonta Smith. He is very hit or miss. He has 4 double-digit weeks and 4 single-digit weeks. Something that scares me about him is he has more games, he has the exact same amount of games with 5 or less targets and above 5 targets. And for being the number 2 receiver in Philadelphia, and Eagles fans always say, like Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, like 1A, 1B. No, not even close. Not even in the realm of possibilities is Devonta Smith as good as AJ Brown. And it just shows. He's had multiple weeks when they played the Rams. That was the other game where
while the talent level might be similar, you can't teach size. And the sheer size of AJ Brown plus his ability allows him to do what the hell he does. Devonta Smith, yes, he can jump high, but he cannot, like, between 2 receivers, just get the body positioning to go. People can't do what AJ Brown does.
Yeah,
they can't.
and
it's incredible.
Like when I look at the last 4 weeks, a catch for 6 yards on 5 targets. 5 catches for 44. He saw 11 targets, his most of the season. Still only got 9.4 fantasy points. They play the Dolphins. 4 catches, 49 yards on 5 targets, 8.9. Then they play Washington, who he had a solid game against the first time. He has another solid game, but Washington's pass defense is terrible. Absolutely horrendous. They're going to play Dallas. It's going to be a grit and grind game. It's one of those games where this is either going to be like a 17-13 game or it's going to be 38-35. But the involvement Devonta Smith has in that, I'm just not sold. But again, with buys and everything this week, he's obvious, and especially where you drafted him, the offense he's on, he's a guy you have to start. But it's just one that I look at the matchup and I'm like, I don't like it.
Yeah, it's like with him and even AJ Brown, you look at the matchup this week, and I mean, you could say you're downgrading them a little bit. Definitely downgrading them. But especially with like guys like AJ Brown, as we've said before, you are not benching your stars.
No.
I have gotten burned by Davante Adams for like 2 weeks in a row. Will I be benching him this week? No, absolutely not. You don't do that.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, trade them. Get
Yeah.
someone else. Don't do something stupid like that, because the week you bench them, they're going to go off for 30 points. Trust me, it happens every time without fail.
And, to me, a very obvious start and someone, I mean, he's a PPR god, is Diontae Johnson. The looks that he comes back from injury after the bye, plays 66% of snaps, catches 5 of them for 79, 6 targets. They ramp him up against Jacksonville. He plays 91% of snaps, 14 targets, 8 catches, 85 yards. Now they're playing Tennessee. We'll see, like we talked about, we'll see how Will Levis performs. Another game with a defense that can get after the quarterback, that's proven that they can cause turnovers. And then, Diontae's the number one guy there. We saw George Pickens.
And Drake London was having a good game against them before he went out. He had 5 for 55. Kadarius Hodge had like 3 for... I don't remember what numbers he put up, but Kadarius Hodge had a good day. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Obviously, I think the Tennessee pass defense has not been good. Their pass rush has been good. So, like I said, we'll see. But does that mean anything for Diontae? No. His targets will just get a little closer to the line of scrimmage, and they'll get the ball out faster.
Yeah.
That's what will happen.
No, they still don't have Freiermuth. Pickens, this past game with Diontae returning, saw 5 targets, caught 1 of them compared to Diontae's 14. It's just, I love the matchup.
This was kind of a in case you forgot this week. Yeah, Diontae Johnson is still very much the wide receiver one in Pittsburgh. That's not changing anytime soon.
No, but that's all I had. I love the Diontae start.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like we said, guys, make sure if you have, Diontae Johnson in your flex right now, switch him, put him in your wide receiver position. Do not start a Thursday night player in your flex. You need the flex spot for flexibility. Yeah. Another thing, just have to mention it every week. Yeah. And then finally getting into the tight ends, my sit this week, it's kind of funny since I had him as a start last week, but just given the woes from the offense that we saw last week against a terrible defense in the Carolina Panthers, I'm not given too much confidence this week against a very good, like I said, Bucs defense. And that's going to be Dalton Schultz. And I just have a hard time. I'm not saying to go out and drop him, although I did for the guy that I have as my start of the week, but that's something entirely different. He's still a good option, and still, his bye week's gone, so he's someone that you could hold on to and have in case anyone goes down. He still got 5 targets last week, so he is getting reasonable volume. But, this is just not a week that I would prefer to, there's guys, I'm not going to give it up yet, but my start of the week, I guess your start of the week, so I won't say it. And a few others. So I'm not going to ruin that, so I'll just get right into it. And my start of the week is Taysom Hill.
Oh, yeah.
Interestingly enough, Sleeper has him projected at 2.8 points, and we love all the people over at Sleeper. But
it's got to at least be 5.5, 6. It's got, come on.
Just tune that up a little bit, guys. He's had 3 double-digit weeks in a row.
Yeah.
It's very obvious that they intend on using him a lot. They paid him money. When they get to the goal line, not only do they want to use him, it's been effective as hell. It's working. And if it works, they're going to keep doing it. And when it works in the Wildcat pass or running, he'll end up passing a few because they're going to sell on the run. And Jawan Johnson is going to end up leaking out for a little 2-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Trust me, they're going to use Taysom Hill every week as long as he is healthy. I don't know. The projection is just wild to me. But yeah, I see him going for a 4th double-digit week in a row against a very, very soft Bears defense.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, that's all I got for the tight ends.
It's funny that, Dennis Allen gets hired and then he just kind of like incorporates Taysom Hill and they're just like, okay, well now you have this guy. And it's like, if you've never even, it's like Dennis Allen doesn't run the Wildcat and they're just like, well, now you have to. You have Taysom Hill. Like, figure out what to do with this guy. We paid him a lot of money. And he's like, all right. It's just, it's just a funny thing. But my sit of the week, and it's tough because he did just have a monster week, is Trey McBride. They play Cleveland mainly. Okay, he had 14 targets, 10 catches, 95 yards against the Ravens, a very good defense. But when you let Josh Dobbs has actually been very capable. It's now you have Clayton Tune going out there, and I'm just like,
in the NFL against the Cleveland Browns defense
in Cleveland. It's like, what are you doing to this kid? It's just a very tough matchup. It's one that,
if you watch the Ravens play the Browns and watch what was happening to DTR, that very well could be what we see this week out of Clinton, just running for his damn life out there with absolutely no idea what's going on.
Like, it's a game where
it's very possible, because it's like,
if I saw like 10 to 12 completions from Clayton Tune on the game, I would not be surprised. Like, I genuinely would not. It is going to be a very tough game. It's just, I like Trey McBride a lot. After this week, Atlanta, Houston, and the Rams, very favorable to the tight end, and hopefully Kyler's back along with James Conner. Then I really like him. Like, if you rostered him, I would keep him rostered. But this week specifically, that's just a very ugly matchup. And then my start, and we always go back to these guys, man. Like, we always either have them as like a sit or a start. It's never like they're just consistent.
You always look and their roster percentage stays at or around like 50%.
Yeah.
And like, these guys aren't even on rosters in over half the league. So it's like,
it's tough. But my start is going to be Kyle Pitts. And we're going back to Kyle Pitts again. It's just, they're at home. They're playing the Vikings. Taylor Heineke's now the starter, who on a consistent basis has been able to throw the ball better than Desmond Ridder. They're going against Darren Hall. Right? Darren Hall? Yeah, Darren Hall, the quarterback Jaron Hall. That's what it was. Jaron Hall, quarterback of the Vikings. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point in this game we do see Josh Dobbs again, because I just don't know what Jaron Hall is going to be able to do. Another thing that I don't like, but for Kyle Pitts fantasy owners' sake, is Drake London did exit the game with that groin injury, and he is sitting out of the practice today. So will he go?
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, obviously he's going to try to go, but with his status up in the air as well, if Drake London cannot go, the Kyle Pitts target share just skyrockets. Even if Drake London does go, I still like Kyle Pitts. This Minnesota team, I feel bad for Vikings fans, for Kirk Cousins, for Justin Jefferson. It's just, the Viking season's done. And it's going to start. It's going to start this week. The Falcons are still fighting for a playoff spot. They could be a playoff team. And finally, Arthur Smith said, let's see what Taylor Heineke got. And it's probably going to be more than Desmond Ridder had. Kyle Pitts might finally have a quarterback that will throw him the ball consistently. And this would be a great first week for that to start.
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning two other guys, because it would kind of be malpractice if we didn't. I think two more must starts at the tight end position. One that we talked about earlier was a tight end, or is the tight end 10 on the year. Good Lord, the tongue twister. That is Logan Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays against the Patriots, but the Patriots defense hasn't been what it was. They're dealing with injuries. And I think, he's had one bad game, really.
Yeah.
So I think he'll be fine in this one. And the other one is Jake Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles have not been good against tight end, and in fact just gave up a huge week to none other than Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
So both of those guys, if you have either one of them or have the opportunity to pick them up, great starts, especially with guys like George Kittle and Sam Laporta missing this week. So
Mm-hmm.
that'll be all for this one, guys. We will be recording our Thursday night head-to-head later, so stay tuned for that. And we, might end up throwing up a couple more of those picks, so stay tuned for those as well.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, any questions, comments you may have, and if you guys do end up joining with us on Sleeper, just comment on any of our socials or send us a message, and we will add you into our group on there where we all share picks, and you can just go on, copy those, and it goes right onto your slip for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Anything else, Derek?
No, just
Nah.
just that, yeah, like you mentioned, our socials, they'll be in the description below. Our Instagram, we give quality updates on there. The Twitter, the TikTok is where you can find, us doing more fun videos like head-to-heads for Thursday, Sunday, Monday night, stuff like that. So stay tuned, follow us on our socials. But other than that, come back in our next episode and take more reps with the first team.
Yes, indeed.